First of all, allow me to pay my gratitude to Professor Morrison. Is a wonderful, wonderful, very visionary scholar. Dr. Ding, Dr. Williams, Dr. Naren, and all my friends in this conference, good morning. Today it was a great honor, and particularly an honor and privilege for me. Because for someone who is not from pork and swine industry, my presence in this conference is rather unlikely. However, that is also why I'm here today. And I hope my engagement in this session brings you some food for thought and helps you to see things from different perspectives. Cooperation, competition, and coopetition. 3 big words that we may feel inspired. But what exactly are they? And why should we do it? Equally important, why should we not do it? And if we decided to do it, how to do it? These are the topics that I would like to talk about today. For any business, including yours, we strive for survival and sustainable growth. And this is where competition kicks in. It doesn't matter you are an owner, a manager, a technical support personnel, a veterinarian, or a nutritionist. You are all part of this competition game. Let me give you an example. For example, you work very hard for space efficiency. Why? Because that helps your business or your company to save cost so that you can provide cheaper price than your competitors. You study antibiotic usage and all types of nutrition. Why? Because you help your company to meet customers' needs and wants so that customers will choose your product, not your competitors. And you can see it's happening everywhere. If you get out of this hallway, you will see the tag, for example, saying, we are the only provider for such and such. Or you see, we are clear, we are cleaner, or we are better. There's a very, spatial tagline really impressed me. That in the poster is saying, deliberately different. So, low cost and differentiation. In the business world, we call that competitive advantages. The basic ingredients to win. And in order to survive and to grow, we really want to win. It is also believed that competition is beneficial because we and our rivals, we compete the innovation, and we would like to really have that innovative product in order for us to win. And that we believe competition induces better innovation. And of course, competition helps for the antitrust and anti-monopoly. Nevertheless, this pro-competition paradigm has been questioned. One of the critics, some argue that this traditional win-lose trajectory leads to a loss of business opportunities. Why? Because we are so busy to compete with each other, forget there might be another market out there. And we are so busy to compete with each other with our limited resources and forget that maybe we have some complementary resources that we can share with each other. As a result, competition undermines the long-term viability. As President Franklin Roosevelt once said, competition has been shown to be useful up to a certain point and no further. But cooperation, which is the thing we must strive for today. What a wise man. While the traditional competition is still the dominant strategy nowadays in the business, in fact, the concept of cooperation is evolving. Basically, in principle, we can achieve anything by cooperation. And the logic is this. Because you are limited with your resources and your capabilities. So basically, you can achieve any goal, any vision that you have by tapping into others' resources and others' expertise. As one of the interviewees in the research project has mentioned that when cooperation works so well, you feel inspired and you can feel the collaborative energy. No doubt that cooperation, many firms form the productive and collaborative strategic alliances. And no doubt that inter-firm cooperation provides you the complementary resources. And no doubt that the industry networks can be hugely helpful for your company and for developing the industry. And there's many reasons why you need to do cooperation. I believe you have heard many reasons or many justifications in other sessions. For example, cooperation provides you access to resources. Cooperation facilitates learning for new knowledge and know-how. Cooperation helps you to do the efficiency and evidence the theory of 1 + 1 sometimes can be greater than 2. And cooperation, collaborated partners, they can share risks, and you don't have to face all kinds of uncertainties on your own. Most of all, cooperation turning that win-lose trajectory into and towards the win-win situations. And it is happening. It is happening in your industry. Last year, you had a keynote speech. I'm not sure how many of you have been here, but last year, you do have a keynote speech delivered by the Meshhoff's colleagues. In their successful story, we were reminded that resource alignment is the key for success. And in that session, the message of to make the whole greater than the sum of its parts is clearly delivered. And continue with the similar mindset. This year, last Saturday, you do have a session. It's on the topic of applying a collaborative approach in a competitive industry. Although that session is in Portuguese. And then, yesterday, you do have a keynote speech. It's on the topic of greater good. It is happening here. However, allow me to remind you, the world of cooperation is also filled with frustrations. There's evidence that cooperation does not accelerate, but decelerates progress. Some even failed without achieving anything. People who try to make cooperation work facing difficult and painful experience in managing it. And above the all, there is a fear of opportunistic or free rider behavior. It's very real. It is there as well. Well, between competition and cooperation, there are pros and cons. And you may like to put into your balance sheet for evaluation before you make that decision of to do or not to do. Within the cooperation relationships, cooperation with your competitors is getting increasingly popular, but probably is the trickiest one. And then we call it coopetition. In theory, it means that two rival firms, they cooperate and compete simultaneously at the same time. And that is the basic definition of coopetition. It is reported, actually, that over 50% of collaborative relationship or strategic alliances occur between firms within the same industry or among competitors. But the cooperative relationship, what I call is like you're sleeping with your enemy or you dance with the wolves. It can be a risk, very risky, but potentially rewarding business. It can be rewarding because you and your rivals actually are operating in a very similar market. So it's highly likely that you will have relevant resources to help each other. And because you are operating in a very similar market, there are many opportunities for you work together to create that common technology, to set up the standard for the industry. And in the competitive advantage, this is extremely important because that standard actually heighten the entry barriers. So both of you will be very competitive and prevent new competitors into your industry. And because you are operated in a very similar market, so we can form a uniform voice in the marketplace, so that your customer can enjoy that easy to use or convenience benefit. And if coopetition operated successfully, there is a chance that you can expand the market. In other words, increase that business pie that you and your rivals can share more benefit, more revenue, more profit. On top of this, coopetition can be very important for small and medium-sized enterprises. By nature, SMEs have that resource constraints. So small rival firms, they work together to deal with that resource constraints issues and as well as the oligopoly issues which manipulated by a few big companies. But coopetition can be also very risky because you actually create the risk of know-how leaking. And it requires more resources and more manpower in order to manage that coordination challenge and tension. Especially on the issue of trust, commitment, and opportunities or free rider issues. And any ignorance, there will be a loss of control, which you don't like have that happened. A central issue of coopetition is this. There is a value appropriation problem, because some company, they really would like to have a bigger share when they involve the coopetition relationship. And as a result, some coopetition actually ends up dispute or even legal issue. Coopetition does have its paradoxical nature. And this leads us to ask this question. So why some companies are better able than others to reap benefits from coopetition? And we really would like to know. Unfortunately, the business literature does not, at least has not yet, provide a formula for us to follow. But there are some clues, and I would like to take this opportunity to share with you, through 3 cases, some suggestions for you to consider. The first case is a study, is an empirical cross-industry study done in Finland. And this study suggests for any company, if you are interested to involve coopetition relationship, you should have, or at least you have to consider 2 basic fundamental components. The first component is what we call absorptive capacity. By definition, it is a firm's ability to recognize the value of new external information or know-how, assimilate it, and apply it to commercial ends. In the human language, it's actually asking your company or your, call it, do you have the ability to know, to learn, and to use the knowledge from the coopetition relationship. The second component is appropriability region. In other words, it's asking your company, do you have that mechanism to protect your intellectual property and from the imitation or the opportunist behavior? So this case concerns 2 basic elements. One is your organizational learning capability, and the other one is about how you are going to protect your intellectual property. The second case is in a study in pharmaceutical done in the United States here. And this study concerns with innovation, a very important but very sensitive area when you involve coopetition relationship. And in this study, it suggests that if you are working on incremental innovation, then coopetition probably will benefit you. However, if you are working or looking for radical innovation, something is not available in the market yet, then coopetition may not work that well. The third case actually is a consistent message suggested by 2 studies. One study is in the healthcare industry done in Taiwan, and the other study is in the telecom manufacturing industry done in Europe. And this case suggests an approach, suggests you with an approach. And I gave a name for this approach. I call it a 2-pronged approach. The theory is this. It suggested that the rival firms, they should have the complementary but distinctive different sets of resources. More importantly, is the rival firms, they should separate the fields of competition and cooperation. A very typical example is like this. that two rival firms simultaneously, that they cooperate in the field like sales or marketing. However, they still compete in manufacturing and R&D. Today, hope you agree with me, it's getting more and more open, and that's why we talk about open innovation. Today, we're in the area, in the edge of technology, and the globalization is unstoppable. So there are many opportunities that two rival firms, they can work together in order to penetrate the global market. However, they probably still would like to have the innovation keep that competition because, again, hope you agree with me, competition sometimes does induces better innovation. And of course, keep that appropriability issue aside. We don't have to worry about that. So those are some logic or reasoning that gave by different scholars, different researchers, that when they observe how in other industry, how they did it and their obstacles, their reasoning of doing it. All the suggestions are legitimate in their own right. However, the concept of coopetition is still evolving in theory and in practice. It may or may not fit your business in this industry. And how about competition, cooperation, and coopetition in the pork and swine industry? To do or not to do, still the question needs to be answered by you. And your decision will create many, many inspiring stories. The story to be continued. Thank you.